Right then, Newcastle are being linked with two explosive winger moves. One could become a proper Brighton hijack with Chelsea circling, while the other is being talked up in Spain as a Real Madrid gem who could help replace Anthony Gordon. Two young attackers, two massive transfer scraps, and Newcastle right in the middle of it. Hit subscribe, join the Toon Army, and let's get into it. Away the lads! According to Sky Sport Germany, Newcastle have entered the race for AIK winger Zadok Johanna, and honestly, this one feels like a proper transfer scrap already. All right, lads, this is the kind of rumour where you lean forward a bit, pint in hand at the strawberry and go, right, are we actually serious here, or are we just hovering around again? Because Sky Sport Germany are saying Brighton have already got a verbal agreement with Johanna. They're saying it's 100% agreed on the player's side. But here's the thing. Brighton still haven't finished the deal with AIK. And that little gap, that's where Newcastle have apparently jumped in. Now look, Johanna is only 18. He's Nigerian, he plays for AIK in Sweden, he's a left-footed right winger, and he's already getting attention from proper clubs across Europe. Borussia Dortmund, Bayer Leverkusen, RB Leipzig, Rennes, Chelsea, Brighton, even names like Tottenham and Real Madrid have been thrown around. So this isn't some random lad someone found on a spreadsheet at midnight. There's smoke around him, serious smoke. And according to reports in Sweden, Newcastle have put forward a bid worth around 24 million euros. That would be huge money for the Swedish league, potentially historic money, and it tells me one thing straight away. We're not just sniffing around, we're trying to kick the door open. And honestly, man, I love that, because for too long, especially under Ashley, we watched other clubs move quicker, smarter, sharper. We'd hear about talent, then we'd blink, and he'd be at Brighton, Dortmund, Leipzig, wherever. Then, 2 years later, he's worth triple, and everyone's sitting there saying, how did Newcastle miss that? Well, didn't miss it this time. The mad part is, this whole thing feels very Yankuba Minte, doesn't it? Young winger, West African talent, Scandinavia, raw pace. Big upside. Newcastle interest, Brighton involved, and we all know how that one ended. We signed Minte from Odense, sent him to Feyenoord, never even saw him in black and white at SJP, then had to sell him to Brighton for £33 million because PSR had us by the throat. Same with Elliot Anderson going to Nottingham Forest. At the time, it felt like survival. Looking back now, it stings. It properly stings. And that's what gets me with this Johanna story. If we genuinely believe he's got that level of potential, we can't just be clever for someone else's benefit again. We can't be the club that spots the talent, does the hard bit, then watches Brighton enjoy the player. No chance. If Brighton can spot the next Minte before us, fine. But if we spot him too and still let him slip, that's on us. And listen, I'm not sitting here saying Zadok Johanna walks into our starting 11 tomorrow and starts tearing Premier League fullbacks apart. He's 18. He'll need time. He'll need coaching, development, patience, probably a pathway that actually makes sense. But that's exactly why this matters. The best clubs don't only buy finished players. They buy the next one before everyone else realizes. They buy the lad before he costs £80 million. They buy the winger before some self-appointed elite club sticks him on their bench and calls it a project. And if PIF are building something serious here, this is the market we have to attack. Not just the obvious names, not just the shiny names, the future names. Johanna's described as quick, direct, good in 1v1 situations and dangerous cutting inside onto that left foot. That profile makes sense for us. We need more pace, we need more unpredictability, we need players who can scare a fullback before they've even touched the ball. Because when SJP is rocking, when the Gallowgate end is breathing down a defender's neck, when it's cold, loud, nasty, and black and white everywhere, that's when a winger with proper nerve becomes a nightmare. And look, Chelsea entering the race doesn't shock me. Of course they have. They see a young talent with resale value, and suddenly they're at the table, because apparently signing every teenager in Europe is a personality trait now. Brighton being ahead on the player side is the worry, though. That's the bit I don't like. They've built a reputation for developing young players and selling them on. Fair play, they've done that well. But Howe, we're Newcastle United. We've got Champions League football back in our story. We've got a fan base that turns potential into pressure and pressure into noise. We've got St. James's Park. We've got ambition. We've got a project that actually feels alive after 14 years of being half asleep under Mike Ashley. So, if we're serious about Johanna, go and make it impossible for the lad to ignore. Not reckless, not stupid, but aggressive. Because there's a difference between being financially sensible and being timid. And sometimes, in the transfer market, you've got to move like the club you claim you're becoming. 24 million euros for an 18-year-old from Sweden sounds wild to some people. I get that. It's a gamble. But every elite club gambles early now. The trick is making sure you're gambling on the right ones. And if our recruitment team genuinely believe Johanna is that player, then I'd rather we take the swing than sit here in 2 years watching him rip it up somewhere else while everyone says Newcastle should have been all over that. No, man. Not again. We're not here to clap while Brighton build another profit machine. We're not here to let Chelsea hoover up every young talent with a pulse. We're not here to act small because PSR has made the whole system feel like it was built to protect the old guard. We're Newcastle United. Act like it. So, now the question is simple. Do we push hard, beat Brighton to Johanna, and show Europe that Newcastle aren't messing about? Or is 24 million euros too much for an 18-year-old who still hasn't proved it in a top league? And I'll leave you with this one, Toon Army. If Newcastle lose Johanna to Brighton after putting the biggest offer on the table, is that a failure from the club? Or is it just proof that our youth pathway still isn't convincing enough? According to Jose Alvarez Haya in Spain, Newcastle have made a move for Victor Munoz, and honestly, if this is true, we're not messing about after losing Gordon. Alright lads, this one's got a bit of spice to it. Because after Anthony Gordon's move to Barcelona, we all knew one thing straight away. That left side couldn't just be left to chance. You don't lose a player like Gordon, a lad with pace, bite, work rate, and end product, then just shrug your shoulders and go, aye, we'll see what happens. No chance. And now, according to Jose Alvarez, Newcastle have offered 35 million euros plus 5 million euros in bonuses for Victor Munoz from Osasuna. That's basically walking right up to the release clause and knocking on the door. Now look, I'm going to be honest with you straight away. I'm not fully convinced this is nailed on. Spanish transfer rumours can be a bit, how do I put this nicely? Lively. One day you're linked with Newcastle, next day Barcelona, next day Real Madrid. Then somehow the Mackhams think they've got a chance. Howe, man. So we've got to keep our heads here. But here's the thing. Even if the exact offer isn't 100% confirmed, the profile makes sense. Munoz is 22, he plays off the left, he's direct, sharp, and he's got that nasty little winger arrogance where he wants to attack his man. And after Gordon leaving, that's what we need. Not just a safe body. Not just a squad filler. We need someone who can actually make a fullback feel uncomfortable. Because Harvey Barnes can do damage, no doubt. On his day, he can finish, he can stretch a match, he can give you that direct threat. But let's be real. We need competition. Proper competition. We need a left side where nobody feels comfortable, nobody gets the shirt by default. You earn it, you fight for it. That's how big clubs operate. And if Munoz is the player Eddie Howe wants, then I get why we're looking. The mad part is the Real Madrid angle. They've got clauses in this deal. They've got a big chunk of the economic rights, and reports in Spain say they've had a route to bring him back if they really wanted to. But according to this latest claim, Real Madrid aren't planning to activate that option right now. And honestly, that's the bit where Newcastle need to be awake. Because when Real Madrid are even in the background of a deal, you don't mess about. You don't sit there sipping a coffee for 3 weeks while everyone else figures it out. You move, you push, you make the player feel wanted. That's the difference. If we're offering him an important role after Gordon's exit, that matters. That's not just money. That's pathway. That's minutes. That's St. James Park under the lights. That's the Gallowgate end roaring when you skin your fullback and whip one across the box. That can sell a project. And I'll say this as well. Losing Gordon hurts. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. I loved his attitude here. I loved the edge. I loved that he played like every match mattered. But football moves fast, man. You can be gutted on Monday and still expect the club to have a plan by Tuesday. That's where we are now. We're not little old Newcastle waiting for scraps. We're a club with ambition, a club that's lifted that Carabao Cup, a club that's been back in the Champions League, a club that should be building before the old guard get comfortable again. You don't replace Gordon by panicking. You replace him by being brave before everyone else catches on, and maybe Munoz is that brave move. But I'll be honest, I need more than a rumour from Spain before I'm fully buying it. I need proper movement. I need reliable confirmation. I need to see whether Osasuna are actually ready to accept that structure. Because if the clause is 40 million euros and we're offering 35 plus 5 in bonuses, they might sit there and say, pay the lot or gagnem. And fair enough, that's their right. But from our side, if the player is keen, if Real Madrid stay out of it, and if Eddie Howe genuinely sees him as the next left-sided threat for this squad, then get it done. Because the worst thing we can do after losing Gordon is look hesitant. That would send the wrong message. To the fans, to the squad, to the league, to every club watching us. We need to show we're not collapsing because one player left. We need to show we reload, we go again, we find the next one, we make SJP loud for someone new. And if Munoz comes in and starts flying down that left side in black and white, suddenly the conversation changes. Suddenly it's not, how do Newcastle cope without Gordon? It's, have Newcastle just found the next one? That's the standard now. So here's the question for you, Toon Army. If Newcastle really are putting nearly 40 million euros on the table for Victor Munoz, is that ambition after losing Gordon? Or are we overpaying because the whole world knows we're desperate for a left winger?
Perfect.